Well, good evening. I'm State Senator Mike Knappich from the 2nd Hampden, Hampshire District, and pleased to be joined by John Sybeck, our state representative, Mayor Mike Taussig. And I want to thank members of the Chamber of Commerce, Eric Snyder and Pat Bruff, for working with local and state government to bring this forum and informational session to folks to help answer some questions about a very significant project here in East Hampton. And it really is an example of your tax dollars at work improving the modern infrastructure for the 21st century, which is a nice way of saying what we're going to see at the end is certainly, I think, something that we can all be proud of and something that will meet the transportation needs. But to get from here to there, obviously this session tonight is to help answer some questions, some concerns, but most importantly, to allow a conduit to have further discussion as this project continues on. And you probably are aware that the Patrick Murray administration has made a tremendous investment with the state legislature in improving transportation corridors throughout Massachusetts. And obviously this is one that is not going to come out without some disruption. We want to help to mitigate that, answer any questions from the earliest point of view. And to my left is the District Highway Director, Al Stegman from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, who is sort of the government's eyes and the ears out here in Western Massachusetts on all transportation projects. And he'll be our expert working with the contractor and others to make sure the project goes forward as smoothly and seamlessly as possible, given the scope of a project of this magnitude. And with that, I'll turn it over to John Sybeck, our state representative, for some comments, and we'll get right into the meeting itself.
Thanks, Senator. You know, there's no question this is going to inconvenience people, and I went through it in terms of my community recently, and it's really interesting. As the project started, you know, we heard from business, we heard from people asking some very legitimate questions in terms of what's the impact on our business, what's the impact in terms of public safety, and we went through it, and the project was completed. And then I heard from constituents saying, oh, do we really have to reopen the road again? I liked it, it was nice and quiet, and so it all depends on your perspective. I think the Senator raised a very good point. I mean, what we're looking at is something that is major and it is a significant upgrade and one that needs to be done. And the question is, how do we do this in a way that minimizes the inconvenience to the greatest degree possible? And it's no consolation that, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, people forget about the inconveniences. That's easy if you're not a business that's affected. And I think the important part of this is to hear from you, and we're pleased. Senator and I, when it started, we were wondering, you know, were we going to have more than 3 or 4 people here, and what was the impact? And I think it demonstrates how important this is to you as a community, and this is your opportunity to speak, and I certainly encourage you to do so and to provide the department and the administration with your input, because it really is valuable. So thank you for coming. And hopefully you'll get most of your, if not all of your questions answered tonight.
Michael, do you want to?
Well, thanks for coming. I figured we'd have a good turnout, and there are still some empty seats in the front, and none of us still bite. I do want to thank the contractor for being present, and Mass DOT and the bridge designer. I think any questions you have about the project, with the exception of the exact schedule, probably can be answered tonight. Al.
Yep, and as you heard earlier, I'm Al Stegman, District Highway Director for District 2. But before we start, I'd like to have people with us introduce themselves and their roles.
I am John Rakonen, I own Northern.
I'm Vladimir Toluev, I'm the scheduler for Northern.
Jim Hoy, Assistant District Construction Engineer with Mass DOT.
Paul White with Diversified Technology Consultants, Project Manager for the design of the project.
All right, so what we're going to do tonight, it's important to realize that this is not a public design hearing. This is a construction preview meeting. So there's nothing that needs to be redesigned. We've got the project, it's out to bid. John's got a job he's got to build, he's got a structure he's got to build, and we're moving forward that way. Now what I would suggest we do is I'm going to turn this over to John, let him go over what he foresees as the project schedule and the milestones. While not cutting stone, he could give you a pretty good road path to what's going to happen over the next 12 months. Completion for the project is slated for October of next year. With any luck, John, I hope you beat that. So wait until John finishes, and we'll open it up to questions, and we'll go from there. John?
Why don't I open up to Vladimir, and he can give you the schedule as we see it at this point here. Give you a synopsis of what we're going to do.
The contract is pretty much structured where we have to get the intersection work completed before we're allowed to close the bridge. So the primary focus will be to complete the intersections O'Neill West Street. The intersection, traffic signals are the first that need to be completed there. Once that is completed, we'll be able to do the detour that is necessary for the bridge. Also, there's utilities that need to be relocated. So in order to do that right now, on the one side of the bridge where we have the overhead wires, we have to install temporary, well, it's not temporary, it's actually going to be permanent soldier piles and lagging that's going to be used to support the banks, and then the utilities will be able to get relocated. And in the present location where the utilities are, there's going to be a pedestrian bridge that's also going to be used for water and gas. So right now the focus is to get the intersections completed. We'll be able to do the detour for the bridge, and then early next year we'll be able to go ahead and install the temporary pedestrian bridge, relocate all the utilities, and at that point we'll be able to go ahead and close the bridge, and then construction will ensue. And it's 180 days that's allocated towards the construction of the bridge, which we will meet and hopefully beat.
So that's it in just a broad overview. Are there any specific questions that anybody's got?
Yeah, that's somebody. When's the intersection lights gonna be going up, and what's the time schedule on that?
The intersection
And when are
lights
they gonna
right
be
now.
functioning, so when the cars come up by O'Neill Street, when is it actually gonna be functioning and start to detour cars there?
Right now, there's overhead wire utilities
Yes.
being relocated and everything
You
like
have a
that.
time
So
on that?
we need to first get in all the submittals. So right now, it's still in the preliminary phases.
So no
So
time
once the
schedule.
submittals go in and they're approved of what's the lights that can be approved, the paint, there's a lot of submittals that need to go in.
Right.
And then we'll be able to go ahead and proceed and go out there and start the installation,
So no.
which will be
3 months,
later
2
in
months?
this year. Later this year, we'll be
so
working on
Like
it, yes.
winter months, is
Winter
that what you're
months.
thinking, kind of?
Fall, winter, yes.
When the lights do go up, are you planning on detouring people immediately, or wait with the
The
lights?
detour is only essential once we close the
When you close
bridge,
the
For
bridge.
so.
that 180 days.
Correct.
Is there much work done to the road prior to you closing the bridge, that you'll be detouring people?
The intersection work not only includes the lights, but it also includes resetting the curbing, wheelchair ramps.
There'll be
So there is
a
additional
lot of
work
traffic
just
there.
outside of just the traffic signals that needs to
Correct.
be done in advance.
But the roads wouldn't be closed for that, it would actually just be like one-way traffic, that type of stuff.
Correct, yes.
Over here?
Dave Strong, I run the school buses in town. And my question is, the last day of school in June, which I can't tell you exactly what it'll be, it'll probably be in the 20s, late June. Is the bridge gonna be open until school closes?
No.
Because that's critical to
No, the
my
bridge
operation.
will close in March.
It'll be closed in March.
Right, end of March.
Because we were told about a month ago by city officials that it would be open through the end of the school year.
No, it can't happen. It'll be closed at the end of March.
The end of March.
Right.
Okay. Then we're gonna have to restructure all the routes in town.
David, can I ask you, what city officials gave you timelines?
I know Carol in the school department
School department.
posed the question to somebody in the Department of Public Works, and that's what she was told. So we set the routes up assuming we were gonna be able to use the bridge all year.
We did discuss this at the public hearing, the 25%, that it was anticipated that would be closed between 3 and 6 months.
Mhm.
So it could not all be done in the summer.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that.
Yeah.
My concern was with the present school year, if we knew the bridge was gonna be closed before the end of this school year, we would have set the routes up as though it was already closed, so that we don't have to change things in the middle of the school year. And that was my concern, that's why we asked the question, and evidently we were misinformed. So you're saying.
Tell everyone in the room, if you have a question about Public Works, speak directly to Public Works. If you
Oh.
have a question you don't know who to ask it to, call my office.
Yeah,
Please don't try to take secondhand information on this project.
And I would say that, you probably should have called our office, because we would have told you exactly
Yeah.
within a month of when it was
Well,
going to close.
As I work for the school department people got their information from somewhere. I don't know where. I was led to believe that it was from the city.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep, right there.
As your schedule begins to tighten up and solidify, will there be a communication vehicle to keep the businesses along that street informed? For example, when you relocate the gas lines, obviously there's gonna be some time when the gas is gonna have to go down. A lot of the restaurants operate with gas. over there. So will they get some heads up and all of a sudden say, next week on Tuesday, we're shutting gas down? Or when you decide to finally open up the detour routes, will you give us some advance notice that next Tuesday we begin detouring because we're gonna start this? It's real critical to a lot of us that have a lot of employees and unfortunately are gonna have to modify schedules and things like that. Might have to delay openings, things like that. So will there be a communication tree that everybody involved or possibly affected will get some heads up?
We will have a resident engineer on site shortly. John's in the process of setting up that field office. He would be the contact person. He would be the one most knowledgeable as to what's happening on the job, what dates are gonna take place, what operations are gonna take place at a certain date. I would suggest, Jim, that we make him readily available to the public.
Right.
Our residents usually are anyway.
A lot of the timeline for that type of work is gonna be based on the utilities themselves, when they
Right.
can get out there. And gas, electric, a lot of times they'll notify the customers that they're gonna affect.
Yeah, I'd just like to take it one step further and ask that, today's age, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to coordinate a master email address for all the businesses on that route, so that when they're gonna do that somebody on your guys' end coordinates saying, by the way, utility companies are coming out next week, just to keep us informed. It will keep anxieties at bay, and I think it'll make everything flow a lot better, and in today's age, I don't see why that's an unreasonable request.
I agree, it's just getting the utility companies on board with that.
Well, I know for a fact they're pretty good at doing that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, if they gotta do something, in my business, they tell me, hey, we're coming in, we're gonna shut your gas down, give us a window when you think it's important. But there's a lot of businesses that could be affected, so I think there's gotta be a better communication. The chamber has most of the businesses' email address, maybe there's a way to coordinate through them, to coordinate to their membership.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you guys do get some type of notice, like, I would imagine, days, weeks, when those types of things are gonna happen. I mean, at least a week, I would hope.
Right, there's access restraints, actually, when Northern can get in there and when they can't, when they have to be done,
Okay.
to allow the utilities to get in there and do their work.
Okay.
So once they step aside and the utility can go in, I guess is what I was saying, is we can't make them get in there on a certain date. They have a window. We can certainly let everyone know when that window is.
Okay.
I can't really speak for the gas, but in my experience, there's never really been an interruption. Generally, they're back, they just put an alternate pipe in so that you continue to have service. So I would never imagine that really
About
happening.
electricity, would there be interruption in that?
I wouldn't think so either. No, all of the basic utilities are gonna continue. That's what the temporary bridge is about, and I've never seen the gas company shut anybody off.
I have another question. The detour signs and the signs that are gonna say road closed and all that, is there anything that's been set up for the businesses that are actually gonna be in that middle section? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna have a sign that says, you're gonna have a sign that says road closed. Like just before you, like where the new bank is.
What we can do, and we've done it on other jobs, is when you have that situation, we'll put an advance sign up, we'll have John make one for us, that it says business is open. Or continue to be.
Where would those
Whatever you
signs
want it to
actually
say.
go? Where would those signs actually be?
It would go somewhere prior to the actual detour, because it does no good if it's past the detour.
Well, I know that, but there's a lot of different arteries that come into Route 10. My business is located right on Route 10, so would it be at the end of Florence Road that says bridge closed? Would it be like where the new bank is that says bridge closed? And obviously on the other side?
The detour will bring people right back to the bridge. I mean, a signed detour will normally bring people back to where.
But for their business.
I own Nicky D's right on Route 10. Our car dealership is the middle section. The end of Florence Road is on one side, and where the new bank is built is on our other side. So we're right on Route 10, right in that.
And while the detour may bring them back around, however, a lot of the businesses really count on the traffic that's going through from Southampton or Westfield to Northampton and beyond. So if they're going around, their concern and their concerns is that people aren't going to come back down, which is part
And
of what
like
the
Al
town wants
said,
to do.
we've done signs in the past, that's not a big deal. We can get signs. I don't want to say we'd get a sign for every business,
No,
but
no.
I mean.
the basic sign that says businesses are open on the.
That's not a
because-
problem.
One of the things the chamber is working.
Just for clarity, the detour, if you're northbound, the detour signs are gonna be just as you come over the town line.
Right.
The road won't be closed, but the detour signs will be there, and it'll say Manhan River Bridge closed or whatever. That's probably the general location you would be looking for a sign that says the businesses are open. People are
exactly, Mike, yeah.
certainly going to be
Right.
free, it's gonna be free traffic to continue down Route 10 past O'Neill
There'll
Street.
be a light there, correct? That's,
There'll be a
yeah.
traffic
I would
light.
almost assume anybody that's going down Route 10, unless they're going up over the mountain, if they're going towards Westfield, they're gonna continue down to West Street and go that way, right? Unless you're going up over the mountain.
You just don't know.
If they know the area.
I mean, you
Well,
can't, I mean,
Well, I would may run into a problem.
I would suggest as we get closer to the closure date, which is until next March, that you work with your Chamber of Commerce, think about what signs you'd like to see, and then write me a letter, and we'll take a look at it and work with you to install what needs to be put up there.
They're very accommodating as far as adding additional signage any time. So that shouldn't really be a problem at all.
Your driveway will never be blocked during construction.
I'm not worried about that.
Right.
I mean, we've been in business for 30 years, and I would be ignorant to think that this wouldn't impact my business, which would adversely impact all my employees that I have.
Mhm.
So I don't want to make, I want to get it clear in my head that it's not going to look like the entire Route 10 is shut down. And we've had construction in that area before where businesses such as big as McDonald's and Burger King suffered serious business, and this is like a franchise that people go to, as you have in Westfield and South Hadley and those other places. So I just want to clarify in my mind that it's not going to be this big road closed sign. If that's the case, then I need to, do other measures.
No, it'll say bridge closed.
It'll be more like bridge closed. Yeah,
No
and
road
you'll be
closed,
following-
bridge closed only.
That's right. You'll be
Okay.
following a
That was
detour.
a big,
That'll
big
be just really,
bridge closed only.
it'll work once people get used to it.
Yeah.
In that same vein,
Well,
bridge
wait, this
closed.
gentleman was up
Okay,
first.
sorry.
For the city council, this is a DOT question. Jumping ahead to the completion of the project, will the light at West Street remain? Because this has been a big concern for residents for several years, because West Street's a very tough street to get out onto Route 10. When the project is done, will West Street light remain for people accessing Route 10 that they could?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a permanent installation.
Permanent light.
And O'Neill Street too, and Pleasant, no? I mean, Ferry, no?
Permanent.
Ferry's temporary.
Ferry's temporary, O'Neill and West Street will be permanent.
Correct.
Right, and that's where 2 major accidents always are.
Yeah, it's okay.
In that same vein, the sign says bridge is closed. Somebody were headed south on Route 10 from Northampton through the O'Neill Street intersection. There'd be nothing to prevent them from heading down Route 10, turning right onto West Street and just
Correct.
continuing on to Southampton.
Right.
So it may dent the traffic, but it's not going to eliminate the traffic.
Yeah, there is no intent to eliminate the traffic,
Yeah, and
and
same
West
thing-
Street will continue to be open.
Both north
That
and
said,
south.
the city is likely going to have a project going at the intersection of West and Glendale next year, which may cause people to have second thoughts about taking that route more than the first time, because they may have delays in 2 locations. There may be some delay, although I doubt very much at the West and Northampton Street intersection. But there, clearly, if we're working at West and Glendale, there'll be a delay there.
Mike, to that point, why would you do it
Why,
at the same
exactly,
time?
that's my question.
Why wouldn't you delay it so that it
Funding,
makes
timing, the timing of the funds. The funds that are paying for that intersection improvement are on the transportation improvement list, and they're scheduled for this coming year.
This coming year, well, advertising, but the job's not at PSNE. I mean, they have to be, it has to be advertised and obligated prior to September 30th of this coming year, of 13. So if the job was advertised in July, August, it wouldn't be under construction until this one was done.
Okay.
Oh, it wouldn't be under construction until this project is over?
That's right.
Oh, that's good, because that would really just shut that down.
Yes.
So I speak as a resident of West Street, actually, and so that seems like a timely time to bring this up. West Street, as and many of you know, is already a problematic spot in terms of the speeds that people travel. The other day I had to dodge off the sidewalk with my dog and son because somebody went over the edge of the sidewalk with their car, their pickup truck. No one obeys the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I don't feel like it's been adequately policed, or perhaps the signage needs to be improved. But right now there needs to be some more accountability, especially if we're having more traffic coming down that road. It's something that I know I and other young families who are moving to the area are very concerned with in terms of children and pets and others on that road. So if we're going to see an increase in traffic down that road, I would like to hear from the city the plans that we have to mitigate any impact that traffic will have on the safety of neighbors in that area.
Have you raised this issue with the chief of police yet?
I haven't. I've been looking forward to coming to this meeting to talk about it, but
Yeah, I can
if
raise
that's
it.
the next
I
step,
can
I'd be
raise
happy
it
to
with
do
the
that.
chief, but I would, this is standard advice to anyone who asks about that issue. If you have a speeding area, if you have a consistent problem, especially if it's at a certain time of day, the police department would love to know that, and they're easy to reach. If you want the direct phone number to the chief, just call my office and we'll give it to you. But they're very responsive when people ask for patrols.
Great.
So they'll try to respond, and if you have your neighbors do it at the same time, and if you maybe stagger it every couple of weeks, you may get lots of different requests into the department. I will mention to the chief that we're interested in him stepping up enforcement, especially during the project.
Well, especially during this project, I think we'll see.
But if you're experiencing that issue now, let's not wait until the project starts.
Great.
Contact the PD.
Thank you.
And I'll raise it with the chief tomorrow.
You know, as you mentioned before, there's definitely going to be an economic impact on the area. You know, when they did King Street over in Northampton, and I happen to have a restaurant out there also, and it was two-way traffic the whole time, every business to a person up there was down 30 to 35%. And then what happened is it took a year after it was complete to get that back because people changed their patterns. Is there anything available either from the state level, local level, federal level that the businesses could tap into from some way to be able to market their businesses during this period to try to keep and minimize the economic impact so that they could get together and do something as a group to say, hey, we're still here, we're still kicking while we improve Route 10 in the city?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
From MassDOT's perspective, there's nothing that we have that can help you with. I don't know if the senator wants to speak to that slightly.
No, this issue comes up, obviously, and anytime there's and I think you're right, anytime there's any construction, it will have an impact no matter where it is, and questions of business owners are extremely legitimate, which is obviously why we're having both this forum to keep those communication lines going, but we do not have a program in place. Folks think we do. Some states actually do. Massachusetts does not have an economic impact offset for businesses, which is why we try to work as aggressively as we can on the communication front, and then obviously with the timeframes with the contractor to make sure that both the communication and the whatever the parameters are of the project itself are met. But to answer the question, we do not have that kind of program.
Separate question. There's a document that the Mass Highways put out to do with contractual milestones in the contract. And it goes through and lists all the milestones and info milestones that you have to go through. In the back page here under subsection 8, it talks about a work schedule. And it limits the work to an 8-hour day, 5 days a week. Now, I know you've taken this, it was originally written up whenever this document was put together. It was a 16-month schedule. It's now down to a 12-month schedule, which is great. But the 180 days you're going to close the bridge is still in at 180 days. So my question is, has anybody looked into the possibility of doing something above and beyond an 8-hour day? So if you start in March, it doesn't get dark till well after 3 in the afternoon. Could we extend the day at any time beyond that, which would shorten the duration where you'd have to actually close the bridge? I can appreciate there'd be some impact on the neighbors that live right at the abutments. I think you should be working there longer. And I'm not saying you need to work all night or Sundays, but I'm thinking you could dramatically increase the number of hours available in the day and potentially shrink it from 6 months or 4 months or something like that. Has anybody even looked into something like that? Or we hung up on the, you can only work 40 hours a week on a project?
Well, there's a number of issues. The contract, as I said, has been let. We have a financial obligation with Northern Construction, and if we change the terms of that obligation by double shifting it, it's gonna involve extra money. I mean, there's gonna be monetary costs. Don't say no. The reality of it is there'll be a monetary cost to change the terms of the contract. We have a limited amount of transportation funds in the Commonwealth. Any additional money we add to John's contract subtracts from the fund's availability to do some other job somewhere in the Commonwealth. Now, that's not to say at some point, we can look at that. There's a whole bunch, you're citing just one particular portion of the contract. There's a whole bunch of other language in there that gives him an incentive to get the job done quicker. And I'm sure John's gonna go after that incentive. It's a substantial amount of money. So as we get closer to when we shut down the bridge and John finalizes his schedule on what he wants to do, we'll be looking at all those different options. Whether or not that becomes an option, that remains to be seen.
So does that mean, no, we're not looking at changing?
No,
the
it's never no.
We're hung up, we're stuck on 180 days.
No, I didn't say that.
Isn't there there's an incentive for them,
To
financial
complete.
incentive for them to do it quicker? And a penalty if they go over the 180
That
days.
is correct.
Damned if you do and
Well, during the 25% hearing, some of the abutters showed up and have legitimate concerns about, the noise and the activity, and wanted to minimize that as much as we possibly could. So we kept with the 8-hour day, and then we used accelerated bridge techniques to shorten that 3 to 6 month construction window for closing the bridge, and that's how we address that, to minimize the construction time for that without just increasing to 10 to 12-hour days.
Because it was originally scheduled for 8-month closure, wasn't it? 8 or 9 months closure?
Yeah, and we've got a construction technique on here that's just about as fast as you can possibly replace a bridge.
And there's some things that you can throw triple shifts at it, you're not gonna speed it up. Concrete's got a cure. You can't say, all right, concrete, you're working 3 shifts, you're gonna cure 3 times faster. It just doesn't happen. So there's those built-in time parameters that you can't change, because it is what it is.
Paul, can you talk a little bit in general about the bridge and what that accelerated technique that's being used?
Yeah, sure. The existing bridge is a deck girder bridge. There's 2 girders and steel framing in between. We're going to take that all off. We're going to rehabilitate the existing substructures, add new concrete stem walls. We're going to insert some piles on one side and reconstruct the wing walls and improve the bridge rail and the approaches. And we are going to then prepare the abutments, the substructure, for precast beams, which look like T's. The horizontal T section will actually become part of the deck slab as opposed to a beam and then pouring a separate deck pour after that, which takes another 30 days plus. So once you put the beams in place, we'll close them with an ultra-high performance concrete, which sets really fast. It's a state-of-the-art concrete that MassDOT's going to try for the very first time. It will accelerate the fabrication of this bridge, the superstructure, in a week or 2. And then after that, you put pavement on it, you pour the sidewalks, put the bridge rail on, and a few other things. And all that within 3 to 6 months, because you have to demo the bridge first and do all the prep work. So that's the accelerated technique, and it's very suitable for this project.
How does the sidewalk fit into that scenario?
I'm sorry?
How does the sidewalk, the pedestrian walkway, fit into that scenario?
The bridge will have sidewalks on each side, and the sidewalks will continue on both approaches as they do now.
And will sidewalks be open the whole time?
Oh, I think she's
No, it'll be
referring
a
to the
pedestrian bridge. The pedestrian bridge will
I mean,
be,
the pedestrian, I'm sorry.
yeah, pedestrian bridge will be installed before the bridge is removed.
Okay.
And then it comes down and then the sidewalks are put in.
I'm sorry?
Once the bridge is in, the
Correct.
pedestrian bridge comes down.
Correct. The bridge will be removed.
Right back there.
I was just wondering, I live on Mill Street. There are 5 houses on Mill Street, right at the bridge abutment. And your light is going to be at West Street, and it will be a permanent fixture, which is badly, badly needed. But what in the plans is being done in regards to people trying to exit Mill Street? Because once the traffic starts flowing and it stops at the West Street intersection, people who live on Mill Street will never be able to get out into the flow of traffic.
This has been designed so Mill Street residents always have time, always have a way to get to and from their residence.
Even after the project is all complete and you've all gone home, and because right now it won't be a
It'll be better than the way it is now.
It won't be a problem, but you know, those of you who live on West Street know we have the same problem on Mill Street. Trying to get out onto Route 10 is suicidal at times. And in our case, we have the bridge abutment, which we can't see, have a clear view up the hill, so we have to pull out into the road now to take a look to see if anybody's wailing down the hill.
Well, we're adding a left turn lane from Route 10 onto West Street.
Okay.
And we're hoping that whole new intersection is going to draw attention to people who have to make a decision, so they're going to slow down before Mill Street. And we think that that will improve the safety situation there.
Thank you.
The other side benefit of the light is you will have forced gaps in the oncoming stream of traffic now. Well, not now, but after the signal's in place.
What about a sign saying, please don't block Mill Street, so that people can get out when the light's red? Instead of having that whole line of traffic sitting at the red light, having at least one, you know, a little bit of a gap where Mill Street goes out. I'm trying to think, there's a street that has that.
Well, there's a street like that in Holyoke.
I was gonna say
By
Holyoke,
the
yeah.
Kmart,
Right.
they have that Ludlow before you get to the police station. That might be something that ultimately, in both of those cases, there's a hash mark on the pavement with a sign saying not to block. So I
Not
would
to
assume
block.
at some point, if as you indicate, that it continues to be a problem with Mill Street, then ultimately that might be something that could happen down the road after the fact.
Could you talk a little bit about the abutments and how confident you are that you're going to be able to use the existing abutments, or what'll be needed and what repairs?
Yeah, we did extensive testing in the beginning because we wanted to salvage as much as the abutments as we possibly could. Meanwhile, you know, we're investing in a bridge that should last 75 years. So we want that rate of return on that, obviously. So we did cores and we tested it, and much of it was found to be in good condition. Some of the granite blocks on the north abutment side, as the stem wall, they need to be removed. And we'll take that down to the concrete footings and cast a reinforced concrete stem wall on both sides, north and south abutment. We only found at the north abutment that the footing was placed on somewhat relatively soft material. We didn't want to put a new bridge on that, so we're going to install micro piles at the north abutment before we put a new stem wall on it. But for the most part, the substructure is going to be retained.
Who addresses traffic control?
As far
Your
as
department?
what? Well, there are TMP plans that were put into effect to address the traffic control. They're actually in the plans. I'm not sure I understand your question.
You're talking 22,000 cars that travel from the Rotary onto Northampton Street.
Yep.
And you're going to be diverting 22,000 automobiles. That's going to be a tremendous task.
It's a lot of
I'd
cars,
like to
but-
ask the two representatives, we have a street called Pleasant Street. Right now, there's an awful lot of side streets, and there's parking on both sides. How do you address something like that for people who are trying to get out of their driveways? I mean, Pleasant Street right now is such a busy place that it's going to be very difficult and very troublesome for a lot of the individuals to get out of their driveway. I have apartments that I rent there, and it's called Fuger Court. I can't imagine my 9 tenants and other tenants that live on that little dead-end driveway to come out of that street. Mike, any thoughts on that? You know
They'll have the
Pleasant Street.
same problems that the people along Northampton Street currently have. I believe that it's a necessary problem to deal with. There is no other detour. The only way to get around the river is to go over another bridge over the river. The two nearest bridges over the river are at Lovefield at the end of Pleasant or on Glendale. The detour that would take in the Glendale Bridge and then bring traffic along West Street is got to be nearly twice as long as the detour that would take people down Pleasant and O'Neill. So I do feel for you and your tenants and all the rest of the people that will be on the detour route. They're going to get a chance to understand what it's like to live on Northampton Street.
Well, that's why I said that I think traffic control should be addressed. And I'm surprised that our chief of police isn't here to sort of address that too, because that's going to be a big issue, Mike.
Actually, some of that was done, I mean, in one of our initial meetings, looking at the structure of the detail, looking at the distance, the estimated time. I mean, I can remember one of the first meetings we had in your office, looking at that in terms of what was ultimately going to happen. I think the only satisfaction is, you're right, 22,000 vehicles currently going along Northampton Street, but I don't think you're going to see all 22,000 of them. I mean, in part because you're going to see some that are going to take West Street the way we talked about it. But I agree with Mike. I think the first meeting that we had when this was first planned, and there was no detour established at that point, was when we looked and said, and I drove, and several of us who drove that detour, drove the alternatives, and there didn't seem to be a better alternative, particularly even if Glendale had been the same distance, we had the other issues in terms of resolving Glendale Street intersection and other projects that.
Yeah, but Pleasant Street is a different street. And again, I've gone through Westfield, and I'll tell you, Westfield's done a beautiful job. But I don't think there's another street like that.
So I think what you're finding, people, we found this in Westfield, we're finding it in Southwick. People's habits will be, if they got to get somewhere for work or an appointment, they will do what they have to do to get there as quickly as possible. So anybody coming over from Holyoke will find a different way. Anybody coming up from Southampton, Westfield will find that different way. You're certainly going to have traffic. There's no denying that. But again, I mean, I think people will be conscious, which is why we're raising awareness a half a year ahead of time. The bridge closure's coming. It ought to catch nobody by surprise. So if you've got to make those adjustments, and people will make those adjustments. And I will say, when we started discussions 3 or 4 years ago about this, I mean, it was a much more egregious schedule for this project. So I want to thank, obviously, the contractor and DOT, obviously, for doing what they could do with that accelerated design process, which was not available 5 or 6 years ago for a project. But at any rate, I mean, make no mistake about it. This is a bridge designed for the next 50 to 75 years. As you know, replacing one that's been there for 75 years also. We're all going to have to do the best we can. And again, Mike's right. The police will be on the front line of the traffic mitigation issues. And let me say one other thing on the communication point of view. And one way we're dealing with it both in other communities, I'm sure John and his as well, is we've established one point of contact with Mass DOT and the contractor. It might be the police department, who then can, every week it happens, draw up what is going to happen next week in the project in East Hampton. And that one individual, you don't have 27 people calling, they're not all calling you, Mayor, but whoever that one person is, puts together a report and then disseminates it to the blogosphere, to the chamber, to the city councilors. Everybody puts it on the website, in the newspapers, as in the radio and television and everything else. And it really worked well to just deal with what's coming next. Why is there delay with Comcast or Verizon or Columbia? And those things happen sometimes, but if that one point of contact can be identified so that there's never a skip in terms of what is happening, that would be very helpful, I think, to making sure that the information is shared properly.
To your point about the volumes of traffic, I mean, we're not going to just turn on a detour and walk away. We'll monitor the traffic situation for at least the first week or so to see where the snags are, where there's problems, and try to modify them to the extent that we can.
I wish I could hear you. What did you say?
Oh, sorry. I'll say it again, a little louder, all right?
That's what I want to hear.
We're not going to just turn on a detour and walk away. We're going to monitor the traffic for a week or so, and see what the snags are and see if there's something we can do to mitigate those snags.
If you do that, there'll be a lot of happy people that live on
I
Pleasant
can't say we'll
Street.
succeed. I just said we'll try.
But give us your phone number.
Tell us where you live.
Yeah, we also have a newspaper called the Gazette, and it also has the Summit that comes to every home in East Hampton every Thursday. So there's that's another tool we can use to publish schedules, so everybody in East Hampton will know what's going on with the bridge. So they have a responsibility as well, so use that as well.
John, do you do a 2-week look ahead at all in your process?
Yes.
So that's something that might become available to us to disseminate?
Yes.
So we'll work on that. I don't know for sure where it'll be. We'll let everyone know. We'll certainly get it out to the chamber. They can get it out through their looks. The 2-week look ahead is just the contractor's idea during the weekly construction meeting about what's coming up, what kind of problems there might be, what we're looking forward to. I don't think that we'll share the entire look ahead, but certainly share those milestones that we think will affect pedestrians or vehicular traffic, that sort of thing. And I'm not exactly sure where we'll share that. I mean, we can certainly post it on a website. We can certainly get it out maybe in an email and create an email tree of that sort. And for now, let's think about coordinating that through my office, and then if we can find someone to pass it off to, I will.
But I just want to add that MassDOT did require that we take a look at the traffic issue there on O'Neill Street. So before we close the bridge, we're improving the O'Neill and Route 10 intersection with new lights and a better timing system to accommodate the detour. We're adding a temporary signal at Ferry Street. So we're doing everything that we can to minimize the inconvenience there. There could be some queuing, some backup at the O'Neill intersection, but it's going to be minimized. We're doing the best we can with that intersection to accommodate the traffic there.
I have a question.
Way in the back?
Obviously, this is the.
Well, just get the woman way in the back there first.
Thank you. I just had a question about emergency response time for residents on West Street in the neighborhoods off of West Street. I'm sure you've already done studies on what to expect for fire, ambulance. What are the differences between what's happening now and what we can expect?
The fire chief was charged with that, and he figures 1 to 3 minutes.
1 to 3 minutes to get to.
Different response than current.
Okay. Thank you.
Was this done in high traffic time? When I went through and looked at that, to me, the numbers, at least 3 minutes seem to be more appropriate to go around that whole area to come back to get to the point where the bridge is on the north side.
Did you have lights and sirens? Did you have lights and sirens when you heard that?
I did not have my lights and
There you go.
sirens.
I think the fire chief lights and sirens.
Maybe, but I don't think you could cut it from 3.5 minutes to 1.
My question is, obviously this isn't the first bridge that you guys have done. So what's your confidence of getting it done in the 180 days?
We want your
I mean,
thoughts.
in a perfect world, do you think it'll be 30 days? Is that what you're going to tell me?
You always finish early.
You always,
No,
your track
seriously,
record is
you
always
do.
finishing early.
Well, he's making money.
And you're confident with this, that you'll probably finish early?
We've never missed a date.
Okay. So, no matter what, so it's not gonna drag
When other
on.
things come up.
That's good. That's good. I like that.
That's a good positive note.
How will the overall
Very much.
winter, if it's a harsh winter, affect you guys as far as tattering?
We're gonna work all winter.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll have a winter like last winter.
You'll be done early.
We're gonna work all winter.
No one else say that.
Woman in the back, please.
I had heard that Glendale and that intersection, Glendale West Street was gonna get done over before the bridge project. That's a very dangerous intersection. And it's gonna be increased traffic there.
And the mayor had mentioned that earlier on, maybe you came in late. That job is on the tip for this year, coming up on 13, and it'll be advertised later in late spring, early summer, probably. Yeah, we don't really control that. So we're hoping that it's later, that it definitely can't get done ahead of the bridge project. There's just no way that's gonna happen.
And so now there's some concern that we don't let it happen during the bridge project. I would really prefer that we did. It would kind of cut down the traffic on West Street, but whatever. If the thoughts are that it should be delayed, we'll certainly.
Well, no, I'm not saying we delay it. It's the normal process that it's got to get to the finished product, which is the right of way and PS&E, and whenever that happens, it can be advertised.
Is there a plan for a light to be put in there on Glendale and West Street?
No.
No.
What's the plan for that?
You're gonna do a four-way stop or anything like that?
It is
No, the design for West Street and Glendale and Loudville and Pomeroy Meadow Road is to move West Street opposite Pomeroy Meadow Road and to improve the sight distance going up the hill up Loudville. Making the crossing of the intersection a straight shot and allowing people a better view up the hill, see traffic far enough in advance will make it safer. The analysis that was done by the consultants and reviewed by the department said that it did not warrant a light. With the improvements, the improvements in construction will improve the safety record of that intersection.
Fixing the road might help.
Yeah.
But
well, speaking as someone that lives at that intersection, I kind of would like to see it happen at the same time the bridge is closed to cut down people going across, but
I travel that road 2 or 3 times a day, and it's coming down the hill. You're coming, 20 miles an hour. You're blind coming down that hill. You can't see. Can't do it fast.
Jack, when your department had been downstairs a few years ago at I think it may have been the 25% meeting for the West Street, Pomeroy Meadow, Glendale intersection, we were told that that project would be done first by officials from your department. And the logic was that would be straightened out and then the traffic would flow from Route 10 much easier along West Street across to Pomeroy without hitting the dangerous intersection. This gentleman just brought up an idea about putting up maybe a 4-way stop there. And that kind of makes a lot of sense, especially if we're going to get a lot of traffic at that intersection. Is that something that you could consider?
Well, that's up to the town if they want to install it. It's not state highway, so I don't control what stop controls go out there. And to speak to the funding mechanism, we don't control when jobs get advertised. The Pioneer Planning Commission determines what projects get on a particular TIP year. And the MPO decides which ones are advertised in any given year. So while I do have a voice on that panel, I'm only one voice.
And it did get pushed back because other projects were higher priority in the region. And we're living with that as we speak.
But as far as the 4-way stop issue, I defer to the municipality on that.
yeah, as far as the 4-way stop, well, first of all, let me go back to the 25% public hearing. I don't think anybody said that would be done prior to the bridge. The hope was that it would be done, but with all the complications that go along with that intersection and getting through all the process, like Al said, that's a federally funded project. Federal rules dictate, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through because we have a lot of environmental issues with that project. We're on the verge of getting it done. Like you said, it's going to happen this coming year. The exact timing of it is hard to predict right at the moment. There's a lot still to be done, but we're right on the verge of getting it advertised. So as far as the 4-way stop, I'm pretty adamant against that myself, in my own personal opinion, for the fact that there's a lot of trucks that travel that route, and for a truck to come to a stop heading north on Loudville Road and to start again, there's going to be a horrendous nightmare for big trucks, buses as well. It's not going to improve the safety of the intersection. It'll make it worse because there's going to be there'll be queuing at that intersection. Granted, it's not safe now, but the 4-way is not going to help it.
Cars will be at that intersection. Will it double? Will it triple? According to the traffic studies that were involved.
No one's being directed to that intersection, so they'll find it on their own. And I don't think that we have any numbers on that.
Once the bridge is closed, the local people are going to know, coming from Southampton way, they're going to know that's the way to go. Except for getting through the gauntlet at the end of Loudville Road. But once you get onto West Street, you'll be able to make the left turn and go to Northampton. You know, we're gonna suffer through it. Hopefully, it's not gonna be too bad.
So a traffic signal at that intersection, the temporary, like you're gonna have temporaries elsewhere in the project, does that make any sense?
We talked about that early on in the bridge project as well. The cost was a factor. There's certainly a cost associated even with a temporary signal. But I don't think it's gonna help, to be honest with you.
Just for us our education, how much would a signal run temporary at that intersection? About?
I couldn't tell you.
Somebody here.
Somewhere in the vicinity of 80,000 to 100,000. Yeah, but I think this, I'm not that familiar with the intersection. Didn't you say it was an offset intersection?
It is.
So how do you, signalizing that proves to be a problem.
Yes.
They're not right at it opposite each other. They're offset. So.
They're offset. How many feet, Jim?
About one lane worth.
One lane's worth.
Yeah. The biggest, I'll tell you, the biggest thing that slowed traffic down was the condition of the road right at the intersection. The bumpier it is, the slower the traffic goes, except for the trucks with a roll-off on the back that's empty.
Some speed bumps?
We have them built in, manholes that are too low.
There already is a couple of speed bumps there.
There is one residual benefit. When Northampton landfill closes, there'll be a lot fewer trucks.
Yep.
Apologies if this has been covered in an earlier meeting, but I'm interested in the environmental assessment plans that were done prior to the bridge project. I haven't seen it reported much in local newspapers, and maybe those documents exist somewhere and you can point me to them rather than discussing it here, but I am curious what sorts, we've invested as a town a lot of money in the health of the Manhattan River and the fish, ongoing fish bridge project and other things. We want to make sure that stays a healthy river and that this project doesn't impact that. So I'm curious about the environmental assessments that were done.
Well, it's an exempt project under the bridge exemption. Okay. However, we do have an Army Corps permit, do we not?
Yes.
And maybe you might want to speak to that.
Yeah, it's fully permitted. We're following all state and local federal regulations on this. We're protecting the Manhattan River. There's going to be some work in it. There'll be some sandbagging, but it'll be filtered. We're not going to pollute it in any way. There'll be shielding when the bridge is demolished. There will be nothing falling in the Manhattan River. So it's really fully protected, fully permitted.
And those documents exist publicly somewhere for the plans of that?
I don't know if they're public, they're in the contract. We have copies in the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Or if you really want to see them, just write me and ask for it under the Freedom of Information Act, and we'll give them to you.
Yeah, sure. I just wasn't sure if I needed to FOIA it or not, but thanks.
Yeah. Yes.
I'd like to revisit the O'Neill Pleasant Street detour. At some point, people will realize that they can stay on Love Field and go up to Route 10 in Northampton. Has anybody considered the effect on that intersection with the bike path? I see people on the bike path that never once stop. They don't even slow down, and they just sail right through that intersection. And that, it could end up deadly. I don't know if it's a larger stop sign for them or what, but I think that it's a potential problem.
I sent Mike an email about that today, and I think it'll be some death or demise to stop.
Great.
The response to your email was that I forwarded it to the chief of police to see if he had any ideas. It was originally sent to include the Manhattan Rail Trail Committee, and so if they have any ideas, educating the users is proven to be difficult. They don't want to heed signals. They believe that road crossings are crosswalks, and it's a problem at every crossing. Well, that's going to have to be one of those pieces that we watch a little closer. I'm kind of happy that the Northampton end of that street is in such terrible condition, because I think people will only take it. I'm sorry?
It takes longer to traverse that section.
I think folks will try it once, maybe twice, but I don't think they're going to continue, hopefully.
And we'll have to watch that as it impacts the bridge project. But I don't know if that email will spark a larger discussion about how do we better educate the bike path users to actually obey the signs that are on the bike path and stop when they're asked to stop. And that same problem exists at Union, and it exists in almost any community that you have a bike path crossing. People just assume that the bike path bikes have right of way, and they barrel through these places where they shouldn't be. I guess that one of the disadvantages of having a popular bike path is that more people cross the street when they ought not to, but.
Pedestrians do that on Cottage Street.
Well, maybe they figure they're in North.
They're entitled.
But it is a place that we'll have to keep an eye out. And I think those of you that are in the vicinity, I mean, please let us know if you see continuing or worsening problems, that sort of thing. The police department, as I said about the speeding, they will respond when you let them know that they have an issue, that you have an issue, or there is an issue that they need to respond to. They can't be everywhere, certainly all the time, but I have not heard that they've not been responsive. And if anyone finds that out, please let me know. But the chief is pretty easy to reach. Hopefully, he'll maybe even provide some further follow-up on that inquiry, John.
Any other questions? Okay, I realize there wasn't a whole bunch of specifics here.
Just one more.
Yeah.
Talking about Love Field and other streets, a month down the road after construction started and the bridge is down, are there any other adjustments that you'll be able to make with traffic flow from the city's point of view if things really start getting congested?
What we expect is that New City will pick up traffic. They'll head east, get the 141 that way. A lot of folks already do that to some extent because downtown, especially certain parts of the day, it's much slower to get through. The only thing that we've talked about being able to do is further traffic enforcement. The idea that if you've got a lot more traffic going in one location, if you're there, you at least can keep them to speed limit. And that's the extent of what our discussion has been at this point.
Okay.
If there are no more questions from the audience, I would like to thank our mayor and the group of you folks, our representatives, for having this meeting. I think it's enlightening. I think the end result is going to be fantastic. We're going to be greatly inconvenienced. I think we have to accept that. And I'll speak very quietly about that too, but we appreciate all you members coming here tonight. And I think I speak for the group. If I don't,
I'll try to make sure that the press gets information about how we're going to let information out.
Got 30 days, Ron.
How you doing? Pat, I'm the president of the